Two major tax increases move forward, one of the largest in the past decade, when Californians could feel the impact. The U.S. and Iran agreed to end the war. At what cost?
I think on both sides of the aisle there is really shock at how little the United States gets out of this deal.
Moving the high-speed rail project forward.
My goal is to let public see we can build it, we run the trains, and then we go build more.
Our first ever one-on-one conversation with the high-speed rail's CEO. His response to the criticism he's been getting surrounding transparency.
Lots of frustration and lots of uncertainties.
State workers push back on the governor's plan to have them return to the office 4 days a week.
This is the thing that matters most to them because they don't want to move.
What do you think will happen if this does stay in place? July 1st, everyone has to come back. Thank you for joining us for California Politics 360. I'm Ashley Zavala. California lawmakers approved two major tax increases this week. It's considered one of the largest tax increases in this state in the past decade, and it's expected to make the cost of living and doing business here more expensive. This is a piece of the overall state spending plan, which the governor and lawmakers are expected to finalize by the end of the month. The first tax is an increase in taxes on health plans in the state. It's expected to increase rates for those who use private health insurance. Experts have said the increase would be an average of about $100 a year for individuals. The other cost increase is expected to come from a new sales tax on digital software. That would apply to anyone, individuals or businesses, who buy programs like Microsoft Office, QuickBooks, Slack, and Workday. This tax starts at 7.25%, but could be larger depending on which part of California you live in or do business. Major tech companies and business groups are pushing back, warning this is going to increase how much you pay for everyday goods and services. I sat down with David Klein with the California Taxpayers Association. Here's part of our conversation. Lawmakers in support of that tax specifically, they're saying that, well, our tax system right now taxes the actual disk of software, and we need to just update it, because the software is now digital. What's your response to that?
Well, first, I don't think the state is obligated to tax everything that we have innovations. That doesn't mean that you have to automatically tax it. But the bigger situation in this case is the pyramiding and the taxing of software as a service. So not just the actual software, but if you're doing a monthly subscription, you're going to be paying that tax for forever, as long as you're using that software. And that is a major change in tax policy. And that is something that, the governor just announced this a month ago, and within a month it was fast-tracked through the legislature without any real hearings. I mean, opponents had, 2 minutes of testimony here and there to just say they opposed, and that was sort of it. But if you did an actual vetting of this idea, I think you'd see that it's going to be very, very costly for Californians.
I mean, how soon do you expect, you're in the research space specifically with taxes, how soon do you see this hitting people's pocketbooks?
It could be very, very fast. Companies are going to have to start paying it right away. And, every product, if you think about all the software that is used in every business now, and I'm sure we're surrounded by it here, you have software for payroll, for security, for cybersecurity, and actual physical cameras and things. Everything we do has software involved. And if you start adding 10% or more to that cost at every step of the way, that is going to add up very quickly for the consumers.
So presumably July 1st it takes effect, and then maybe within weeks, months?
I think it would be safe to say weeks.
Oh, wow.
I don't think, because this is so new, it was rushed through the legislature with almost no actual vetting. A lot of these are unknown, They didn't do a big analysis of here's what this tax is going to cost and here's the behavior it's going to change, which is always the main question. If you increase a tax, people are going to change their behavior. It is just a fact of life. So you want to know that before you just rush into it and sign it into law, ideally. In this case, I don't think they do that.
Governor Gavin Newsom's administration estimates this tax will bring in about $1 billion but why the Tax Association says it could actually be 5 to 6 times that amount. Well, a peace deal to end the war in Iran. I sat down with Senator Adam Schiff, his concerns with what the U.S. is getting out of all of it. With an agreement to end the war in Iran, oil tankers began freely moving through the Strait of Hormuz. The key shipping channel was blocked for months, causing gas prices to skyrocket worldwide. I sat down with U.S. Senator Adam Schiff about the deal the U.S. and Iran agreed to. Here's part of our conversation. Now that we have the text and we've seen this peace agreement that the president has signed with Iran, what do you make of what Iran is getting versus the United States?
I think on both sides of the aisle, there is really shock at how little the United States gets out of this deal, but how much Iran is receiving. Iran gets $24 billion in unfrozen assets. It gets a $300 billion reconstruction fund. It gets the immediate relaxation of sanctions. It can export its oil. It can use financial institutions. It can do things it's not been permitted to do in decades. It gets us to commit not to involve ourselves in Iranian internal affairs. So it basically says to the Iranian people, good luck on your own. They have acknowledged they're going to allow Iran to have its missile capability. It is a total giveaway to Iran. There's even a suggestion that after 60 days, Iran might be able to charge tolls for passage through the strait, something we've never allowed. And what does the United States get out of this? One paragraph that says Iran reaffirms its commitment not to develop a nuclear weapon. And the use of the word reaffirm is telling in the sense that that promise is not a new thing. Now, whether they will ever abide by that is different, but they're giving us nothing. And a lot of what we're giving is immediate. So it's a total and complete capitulation by the administration, which is why I think it's raising such hackles and alarm among both Democrats and Republicans on the Hill.
What are the next steps that you see happening on the Hill here? Do you foresee oversight? Could we see hearings? Could we see legislation to intervene possibly in any of this?
That's a very good question, because for weeks and weeks, we couldn't get the Republicans to even have a single public hearing on the war in Iran. So we were losing service members. We were bombing another country. We're in the midst of a full-scale war, and they wouldn't have an open hearing on it. Finally, after weeks, they succumbed and did. Will they be willing to do hearings on this agreement? I wouldn't be surprised if they refuse, because they know how bad a deal it is, and the administration's probably not going to want to defend it. Republicans may be loath to be seen as aggressively criticizing it. I hope we will. We darn well should, because this MOU could become a permanent deal in 60 days, and some of the damage may be irretrievable. So I hope we do. They're in the majority. If they don't hold hearings, we'll probably hold what we call shadow hearings, where as a minority party, we bring in witnesses nonetheless.
I know, the trickle-down effect of this entire situation has been increased costs on Americans, on Californians. Do you have a sense of how this peace agreement impacts that? I mean, could we see some relief? Will Congress look into potentially providing some sort of relief? Anything on that front?
Well, some of what has taken place during the war can never be replaced or restored. We lost 13 service members, including Robert Marzan from Sacramento. Those lives were given in the service of this country. Those people did their duty, but we did not have a commander-in-chief who deployed our forces for good reason. This was a war of choice. We had not been attacked by Iran. We had no threat of imminent attack. So this was a war of choice. And American consumers have paid heavily for it also. We paid $60 billion more in gas as a result of this war, and those costs continue. So that's hundreds and hundreds of dollars by every American family that has gone into this war. Will they ever recoup that? There's nothing in this agreement that suggests such a thing. Indeed, the $300 billion reconstruction fund is not for America, it's for Iran. So sadly, I don't see anything positive coming out of this war.
Senator Schiff and I also talk about the Justice Department's apparent investigation into Governor Newsom and his wife. We also discuss the EPA sending some of the California emission rules to Congress, providing a path for them to possibly get repealed. Well, next, our first ever one-on-one conversation with the California High-Speed Rail CEO, Ian Chowdhury. His response to concerns raised about transparency. The California High-Speed Rail project has been plagued by delays and cost overruns for years. Now, leaders hope to have riders on the Merced to Bakersfield section within 7 years. And the plan promised to voters, San Francisco to Los Angeles, potentially by 2039. But with no money identified for LA to San Francisco, some lawmakers question how the project can even move forward. Aside from those concerns, this year, the project's CEO was arrested and faced a state investigation. Ian Chowdhury was arrested in a domestic incident that resulted in no charges. He was also placed on administrative leave after it was made public that his fiancée works for a company that was awarded a contract with the high-speed rail. Chowdhury was cleared and is back to work on the project. We've been asking to sit down with Chowdhury for months, but he was hesitant to talk about any of it until now. This week, Jason Marks met with him at a project site about where the high-speed rail moves from here. Here's part of their conversation.
So it's moving along.
It is moving along. I'm super excited. Look, all our design concepts now are in line with what the Europeans and the Japanese have done. This took us about a year to streamline all the processes we were doing, optimize as much as we can. My goal is to let public see. We can build it, we run the trains, and then we go build more. Public had lost some confidence in the program because of the reasons we spoke about earlier. But if we talk more to the people and let them understand what happened and what's going to happen next, then I think this public support will continue.
And I'm not here to ask you about the incident a couple months ago, but do you regret not going to the governor's office and letting them know what took place?
I am focused on this program. This is really what I'm trying to talk about and communicate with the administration, with the legislature. So I'll continue to do what I'm here to do, which is to build this program as fast as we can.
Are you concerned about the image that maybe you're not being transparent in such a major, high-profile project?
Look, if somebody can come and tell us what is the information they're looking for that we have not provided, that we have it, I will be more than happy to discuss about that. Why not? I mean, we improve every day. We have improved the entire design concepts. We have improved the way we are going to deliver. If there is someone who comes and says, hey, this is the information we are looking for, and you guys are not providing it, I would like to know what that is. However, I would say this, everything we do, every penny we spend, it's posted on our website for public to consume. Not a single thing we have done on this program is unavailable. So I'm more than happy to talk about what that is in terms of transparency, and we'll improve it if there is a reason to do that. Right now, I have not seen, I hear it, but then I'm like, well, what is it that you guys want to know more? Absolutely, my team is committed. I mean, this is a public works program. All I tell my team to do every day is to provide the information as much as we can to the public through you guys. Yeah.
What will it be like for you when you start seeing the first trains on this structure we're standing on now?
That will be
maybe
for my entire team. That will be for my entire team. Is going to be the day to be so proud. It is the first high-speed rail in Western Hemisphere. Somebody have to tell me which other high-speed rail is being built in North and South America combined. Tell me one. There isn't. There is a lot of talk. Canadians are talking about it. Mexico is talking about it. We in this country have been talking. We go visit other places and come back. Oh, let's look at China, how they did 25,000 kilometers in less than 10 years. Well, they didn't have what we are dealing with. They didn't have NEPA, CEQA. They didn't have the red tapes. They just blow and go. But look at Europe and Japan. Japanese high-speed rail, first one was commissioned in 1964. And since then, we have been talking about we want to have one. Europeans were done in 1991. They put in. So when we are done with this, I think this is a moment for the entire, not our team only, but the state of California to be proud of it, but the country as a whole. Because we just created a template how to build high-speed rail system. Even this section creates that template. And I'm very passionate about it. That's why I'm here.
And you said when we get done, not if we get done.
No, there is no if. There is no if in our mind. Absolutely none. We know 2032-33 is this section done. If we get all the funding that we need to stabilize the rest of the line, in our business plan, we said we can get it done by 2039 in our lifetime.
But there was an if there when you came and talked about funding.
For funding, look, we got to build a house, you got to have money. What's your collateral? Like, you want to bring private sector in and say, hey, invest, advance. They can do it. This is what they do. This is their business model. And so they advance programs based on a long-term commitment from the state or the federal government. Then they invest. So yes, you want to build your house, you need the money to build it. And if you don't have it.
That interview is part of a larger story Jason is putting together on the high-speed rail, which we'll have for you later this summer. Well, billboards like this one that you'll see here on your screen popping up, fighting the governor's return to office. Thousands of state workers set to return to the office in a matter of days. Why they say logistically, this could be a mess. Governor Gavin Newsom ordered thousands of state workers back into the office. The July 1st mandate requires state workers to be in the office 4 days a week. But there's been pushback from workers across the state. And now California lawmakers are moving forward with a push for state agencies to offer telework options. A new billboard off a highway in Sacramento warns of a future traffic jam caused by Governor Gavin Newsom. State workers are fighting the governor's order to get them back to the office starting July 1st. There's a billboard on the Cap City freeway right now. You guys put that up?
We did not.
Oh,
no,
you did
some
not.
Some of our members did.
Some,
yeah.
Okay.
Or,
so,
some people who care deeply about this did.
Anika Walls is the president of SEIU Local 1000, which represents state workers in Sacramento.
Since COVID, we have been working and doing the jobs and being efficient at running the programs that keep California running. And this mandate, as overarching as it is, does not give the departments the space to bring back our workers as needed.
But the governor sees it differently.
Change is hard. I'm empathetic. Everybody has unique criteria, circumstances. By the way, we try to accommodate for that. 4 days a week. Nice to see you again. I mean, it'd be nice to see you again. Nice to see you again. Nice to run into you in the hall. Nice to develop a relationship. Nice to not feel so alone.
From a local economy standpoint, having that influx of personnel in every single day downtown is a positive response from the local business community.
President of the Sacramento Metro Chamber, Robert Haidt, recognizes state workers may not want to return, but says it could have a huge impact to the local economy.
There is a lot of value in bringing people back to the office. The ebb and flow, the next generation of workforce, there is a value in experiencing by observation. Even me as the CEO, if I wasn't here every day, there are things I wouldn't notice or pick up or see in the office. I can't imagine that we can sustain a acceptable level of business and commerce with everyone remote. It just doesn't make sense.
State workers packed a committee hearing at the state capitol this week, trying to quickly get a law passed that would require state agencies to provide telework options, and if not, put into writing why specifically workers must be in office. Democratic Assemblyman Alex Lee wrote the bill.
I have heard from so many state workers from even the Bay Area, all up and down the state, who said this is the thing that matters most to them because they don't want to move. They love their job, but they're not willing to move after working 4 or 5 years in state service.
What do you think will happen if this does stay in place? July 1st, everyone has to come back.
I feel like there will be a mass exodus. I feel like the state needs to be ready.
On CalPolitics360.com, you can see my full interview with SEI Local 1000 President Anika Walls. Thank you for joining us for this week's Cal Politics 360. See you next week.